Sutton Leadership Show, lighting the way with real leaders, real stories, and real impacts. Because when leaders stop growing, the darkness wins. All right, welcome to another amazing episode of the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Today's guest, Teddy Rogers, is the co-founder and commercial specialist behind Anderson and Rogers Construction, a Lexington-based design firm with nearly 2 decades of proven experience. A homegrown leader who got his start laboring for a brick mason in 1999, Teddy worked his way up through the job site, through grit to the executive leadership, building a firm now trusted across Kentucky and beyond for both high-end residential and commercial construction. Born and raised on Clays Mill Road, Teddy's journey runs deep in Lexington, from Clays Mill Elementary all the way up through BCTC and then UK. In 2006, he launched Anderson and Rogers as a residential contractor, and by 2010, he expanded into commercial work, leveraging strong networks, including his long-standing involvement with B&I, to build strategic partners that last. Teddy leads with integrity, craftsmanship, and relentless follow-through, and his team combines traditional construction values with modern tech like 3D drafting and online project management to deliver bold results without the chaos. Whether it's custom home or complex remodel or a commercial building, Teddy's approach is clear: exceed expectations, elevate the standards, and treat every project like it's personal. With that, I'm very excited to bring on the stage Teddy Rogers.
Hey, thanks, Drew.
So Teddy and I met. Teddy launches groups all over the place. Everywhere he goes, he's a relational powerhouse. And so he started a group called, I think, Select Networking, and I joined that about a year ago, I think. And I was immediately impressed with both Teddy and his team. Trey, we've had Trey on the show, and it's fun. It's just fun to hang out with you, man.
Yeah, Trey's my guy. He's definitely stepped up and become the networker that I always wanted to be. I still have some presidential duties. He gets to go be full-time networking.
Yeah. One of the cool things from a networking perspective that you do, and you're the one that taught me this, is to set up meetings with 2 or 3 people. So instead of just saying, hey, let's go have coffee, you say, hey, I'm going to go have coffee with a friend. I think you'd be great. And then all of a sudden that coffee turns in from this awkward, like, ritual that we all have to do to get to know one another. And it becomes a real connection, leveraging point. Tell me about when you started that.
I'll tell you, it became real hot and heavy during COVID. Zoom was like just a wasteland for conversations, and it just seemed like when we were meeting with people, there just was low energy. And so by adding that second person, it's kind of like the difference between going out with one of your buddies versus going out with 2 of your buddies. It always amps it up a little bit if you've got a second person there to kind of, I don't know, and just increase the fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, ever since I've started doing it, totally agree with that. It's not like 30 people or 50 people where it's just kind of awkward. And I think that, like, if you go out to lunch with, let's say, 4 people, maybe I connect with you, maybe I connect with the guy beside me or the lady across the table from me. And so we're free to have our own kind of willy-nilly conversations. But virtually, everybody's kind of held hostage by whoever's talking at the time. You can't have side conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also too, people don't know necessarily how to network. I think there's a lot of amateur networkers out there so sometimes if you can kind of connect the dots for them while you're in front of both of them, it makes sense to both of them. They can understand the power and the opportunity that they have to network together.
Yes, I love this. So what is your opinion of the elevator speech? I think the elevator speech is dead. I think it's run its course. I think it has a function, but I think that I think it's become so commoditized and poorly done. So
it becomes more memorable than what you do. Like, I think of the elevator pitch, I think it's always cool. We all like to sing along with a real good one too. But eventually it's like, what do they actually do? How many people know what Aflac does versus know the duck? I think it outpowers kind of their message sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, that's good framing for that. I like that. Okay, well, let's talk about you. In society today, there's a whole bunch of things: go to college, don't go to college. And I don't like the narrative. I like Mike Rowe, his thoughts on the idea. But I feel like a lot of people are like, well, I chose a degree that isn't really what I wanted to do, and I didn't have a good plan. So college should not be done for anybody. And I think that's wrong. But you have a really interesting story and a lot of success in life. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I encourage most young people to get in the trades because as long as they're willing to work hard, show up, they're starving for the help. But on the college side, I've got kids. I'm encouraging them to go to college, but I'm looking for them to specialize in something that's going to be useful coming out of college. Because I think, one of my project managers that works for me, got a communications degree, and that doesn't necessarily translate greatly into construction. Although I do have full spills on communication and the importance of it. But I'm trying to get my daughters to get into marketing because they're creative, and I feel like marketing, even though it's evolving, is always going to be around.
I agree. I think from the first barker at the stall to to today. Actually, my daughter, I just dropped her off at U of L, and she's doing marketing. That's what I'm encouraged her to get into.
Yeah, I think it translates well. Trey, as we talked about earlier, seeing his success with his marketing degree, he can handle a lot of, what we're doing to try to innovate ourselves and try to stay ahead of our competition in the market, as well as it translates well to networking. I think, that creativeness, gives him kind of an open door, to where he's not afraid to go up and talk to people and create interesting conversations instead of just the same old, hey, what do you do, and or hey, where are you from. It's those exhausting questions.
Yeah. Okay, so you spent some time in college, but then you said this is not a fit for me. You jumped into your first job. Walk me through the journey from your first job to when you said, you know what, I think I want to take the reins of this.
I would say, college for the most part, I enjoyed it. I think the experience was there, and I was looking for a specialty that was going to make me a lot of money. Well, what I realized is what I chose. I was going to be outperformed. My competition was already outperforming me at the college level, and so I then started working for a builder while I was in college, and I took to it like a duck in water. I loved it. I loved the challenge of it. I think my attention span's built for it because by the time I'm getting exhausted with it and ready to move on to something, the project's done and I'm starting another one. And so that kind of worked out perfectly for me. But that first job was huge because even though I started out at the entry level sweeping out houses and cleaning up the job sites, he was growing, he was up and coming. And so when the opportunity came and he needed a project supervisor, I kept raising my hand and saying, I can do it. And my confidence, of how certain I was that I could do it, eventually pulled through to where he trusted that, hey, maybe this kid's right. Maybe he can do it. And he took a chance, uh, kind of a risky one, but it seemed it worked out for both of us.
No, I get it. I'm actually when I got a change at Lockheed, I'm a mechanical guy. That's mechanical engineering, and so that I just call it Tinker Toys because a lot of what we do, like the math is pretty straightforward and it's already run by a computer. So you're just kind of designing the Lego system and then double checking that it works and then going back to it. But all of a sudden, I found myself having to learn electricity, and I was not good at electricity in school. Um, the only thing I know about electricity is that it doesn't flow downhill. It's like water, but it doesn't flow downhill. And if you try to siphon it, it's not a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Electrical wasn't my strong suit either.
yeah. So I picked up modifying Nerf guns. I had kids that were 9 years old at the time. And so we bought a bunch of Nerf guns and tore them apart. And I taught them how to solder while I was teaching myself circuits. Because I think I like you. I need to work with my hands. I can't. Uh,
Yeah.
the school part was not the greatest for me. I do enjoy learning, but it just wasn't the greatest.
I was actually studying computer science engineering,
Were
and
you really?
I was phenomenal at math, but typing code, that was like
Uh,
learning a third language,
it is.
or maybe
Yeah.
like I don't know. It was learning something completely unique to what I had done, and that's where, like, when I say I was getting outshined, I always referred to them as kids, even though they're the same age as me. For whatever reason, I felt
Yeah.
maybe I just felt like I had an old soul or something. But these kids were lapping me. I mean, these assignments were calling for 30 pages of code. These kids were writing 90 or 120 pages. They're like, look at what my program can do. And I'm struggling to get through the 30 pages and make it do the basic requirements of the assignment. And I just knew that wasn't, I wasn't necessarily going to really shine at that especially when, these kids had probably been doing it since they were 5.
Yeah. 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 So, all right. For in the trades, let's say that I own a trade business or a service business. Um, what do I need to look for to find a young Teddy that's going to one day help me move the needle in my company?
Well, I recently talked to an 18-year-old, and they were referred to me by somebody else. They were looking for a job. And I asked them some real core things. I said, "Are you going to show up every day?" Like, I know that seems like such a basic question, but if
Yeah.
you're going to show up every day and you're going to work hard and give it your all, and you're not going to stand around and mess with your phone, and so it's the work ethic. Everything else can be taught. What they couldn't teach was, my commitment to getting whatever it was done. I used to say, my boss would ask me to do something, I'd say, no problem. And at first, I think he was really, so, my lackadaisical answer, I think it probably concerned him. But eventually he realized if I said no problem, that meant no problem. And if that meant I had to show up at 5 in the morning, set up floodlights to sweep out the house because I had class at 8 or 9 o'clock, I would do it in order to get that job done, to impress upon him, to get paid. Because obviously I was a college kid, I was broke, and I needed money. But
Yeah.
it was just that commitment, that follow through. Like if I ever said something was getting done, it got done. There was never a disappointment, never a letdown. And if they can somehow adapt that work ethic, the rest is easy. It's just learning, and that's just time and repetition.
I love that. No, I was a pretty sharp kid, but I didn't go to class a lot. And I actually had a buddy that he was more like you. He would his name was Kevin, and I'm like we became really good friends. And I would teach him the material, and he would get better grades than me because we would meet together at like 8 in the morning, and we would actually we'd have breakfast together at 7:30, and then we'd go to class at 8, and we go to class all day. We go to lunch together. We go work out together. We go to class together. We would study until Kevin got tired, which was generally about 8 o'clock at night. And then he would go home and put in another 2 hours of studying, and I would go home and I had my wife at the time, the girlfriend at the time, so we'd go hang out. And but man, that really taught me that it's the work ethic and this and the commitment to getting it done is far more important than the material.
Well, you see it a lot with like athletes that are naturally talented. That natural talent is going to take them a pretty decent distance. But eventually, the kid who had very little talent with just infinite amounts of training and dedication can topple that person with the natural talent. I saw it in high school, and I think you see it at the collegiate and even the pro level. It's like some of these kids who come out of college and are okay go to the pros and they're remarkable. And I think that that's the work ethic in between. Like they already had some of the core talent that they needed, but they maybe weren't as talented as the guy who was naturally gifted. They outworked him.
You
They
outworked him.
outperformed him.
I love it. And so you're a hard worker and you're a natural networker. That's one of the things I love about you. You've told me several things that have kind of changed how I approach networking, which I appreciate. Tell me your favorite story about relationships in business, because you've achieved a level of success that a lot of trades folks haven't. You are in multiple states. You yourself actually live out of state now. You live down in Florida, but you're doing work all over the Kentucky region, so Kentucky and outside. Um, Tell me your favorite networking story that has really moved your career forward.
It's probably the BNI introduction. I got invited, and I was doing fine. I didn't need BNI. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
it's funny because looking back, I absolutely needed it. But I had a realtor that just kept inviting me, kept trying to convince me to come, and I literally in my mind I was like, I don't want to join your cult. Like I don't need this. It's not for me. I'm fine. I'm busy. I have all the work I need. I can't even hardly keep up with what I got. And she said, well, hire some more people and go and come networking. And I went, and I was nervous, because it was very regimented. And that that kind of had me like, I was like, these people are serious. Don't look at your phone, be
Oh
attent,
yeah,
stand and give a 60-second commercial. And every bit of that was like, okay, I'll stay in it for a couple of weeks. Few weeks in, I already get my first lead on a job. I'm getting better at speaking in front of crowds, because it's giving me more opportunity to engage, get better at pitching my company. It was absolutely the biggest and most pivotal moment in my in my success was getting introduced to modern networking.
I love it. One of the things that I love that you pointed out there is that none of us are good at it to begin with. The networking cycle, the pitching your business cycle, and finding a group of friends, not like feel good friends, but friends that will push you. And hey, look, we're about business because that's business is where we actually start helping people. Good feelings are not where we help people. It's getting stuff done. So, what is it like to transition from, hey, I'm pretty good at this and I got one or two guys to, I want to start building a business, like one where I can wear a, a, a polo with my name on it
Yeah.
and like go into big buildings?
Yeah. The transition was really fine, letting go of kind of the ropes. Like there was a book I read and it tells about letting go of the vine.
Ooh,
Um, and I remember, kind of at the various points of like, I actually it was almost an employee that pushed me into it to a degree. I was doing a lot of micromanagement, a lot of helicopter parenting, which was holding me back from growing. And he looked at me and he said, "Why are you doing my job?" And I
nice.
was like, and it was the kind of push I needed. And, I was doing his job because I didn't trust that anybody could do it as good as me. I've trust that, I think at times I accuse people of running my name through the mud. I think it may have said that
Mm,
exact words because Anderson Rogers Construction in a way in the beginning was almost Teddy Rogers Construction. So somehow kind of understanding that it was his own entity that needed to breathe on its own and it needed to operate with or without Teddy Rogers. So I started building it into a little bit better structure and started hiring and obtaining really good, really talented people. Because in order to stop wearing a hat, you have to trust that the person that's wearing it can do it as good or better than you. And um, and not letting your ego get in the way of that because you want them to grow, you want them to advance, you want them to be better than you. um, that's I think it's almost more of a parenting thing. Even you want your kids to be the best version of you.
yeah. So you always say that success is built on a mountain of failures. So give me your most frustrating employee failure, and then give me your maybe your most successful moment as a boss mentoring folks.
um, I would say the employee one is just that constant, like, almost what I alluded to earlier. It's like the showing up, the being consistent, the being committed. So many people, it's like a paycheck to them. It's 9 to 5, and the frustration is like you see that the people have kind of some of the core, and you feel like you can see them grow. And coming to the realization that you can't help that person grow is kind of one of the
Mm,
most frustrating things because you've now invested your time in this person. And I've, I hate to think that I'm jaded, but I would say that I give up on people a lot quicker now when it comes to, seeing their personal growth because I've known in the past that I fought it for sometimes years. Like it's like I just need this person to do just these things, and it's like you can see it so clearly. Um, and I think I referred to that as like the it factor at times.
oh
I'm like,
yeah,
they either have the it factor or they don't, and then they're like, "Well, what's the it factor?" And it's like, "Well, if you have to ask, you're probably not gonna
you probably don't.
not gonna figure it out." And what was the second part of that question?
So all right, that's the frustration, and I love that story because it as a good leader, you always want more for your people than they want for themselves, and then
Yeah,
finding that moment where you're like, this is their cap.
yeah,
It's a deeply sad. There's a couple of people in my life. Thinking about one specifically, I fought for his promotion, and he was like, I don't know, I don't really want it. I kind of like my easy life. I'm working my 40, blah blah blah. And I was like, man, listen, this next promotion only comes across once every now and then, like probably every 2 years we have an opening, and you're at this spot. You're clear, like everybody loves you. You do a great job. If you don't take this now, we will never offer it to you again, basically, right? Because you're kind of like voting yourself out. You got to take it, and I will help you. And he just didn't want to grow into the role. And for me, I was like, I. So then we kind of had to demote him, and we let him stay at the same level, but we just kind of capped his pay for a couple of years so that kind of everything balanced. because we really liked him. But I realized in that moment, I was like, you can't push some people past where they want to go. And so anyway, so the second part of the question is, all right, so that's the frustrating lesson. Um, tell me the person that you're most excited about right now. Who have you promoted recently or helped move in their career that you're like, that was spot on?
Well, I, you know, I don't want to call them all out individually, because there's actually I've got several that I'm really excited about. That they bring something to the table that I don't necessarily have at kind of my core. I'm not the most organized person, so I need people who are more organized to work for me. I think I'm impulsive, so I need people to, that are going to really think through and challenge my thought process. And I was fortunate enough to have a business partner that I got to see grow in real time. And, when he started poking holes in everything that I did, at one time I was taking offense to it. And I think that that's just my own personal growth that I no longer take offense to it. I kind of seek it. Like, I'm like, all right, show me what I'm not seeing. Show me where the traps are. And even some of that comes from like my old original mentor, where he goes, you don't know where the traps are often until you spring them. Is that one of the things he said? So, I would say that there's a lot of members on my team. I'm not going to name them individually, but I do believe that like I've seen them grow and progress, and some of them it's rapid, like it moves so quickly, and that's exciting. And I'll say too that I've started kind of getting a few younger generation guys come in, and that
Yeah.
energy is really lifting. Because I've been doing this now, what, 25, 26 years in construction, and it at times just becomes routine, and you don't necessarily see the excitement. So having these younger guys where they're just experiencing it for the first time kind of gives you a vicarious feeling to live through their eyes or see it through their lens, the natural excitement. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna give it to the young guys right now. Their youth and their excitement's pretty invigorating.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know that I've heard a leader praise the younger generation and appreciate their excitement in a long time. That's
Yeah.
refreshing for me.
Yeah,
Um,
and part of it is that a lot of them I brought in that were young didn't have that ethic, that work ethic that we talked about. So it's exciting to see the work ethic and then be able to build and invest in that. So I'm investing in their growth, and their excitement's just kind of spilling out because they want to be here. This is what they want to do, and it's very refreshing even for me, because I've had a lot that have come in, and and they're just like, nah, they're
yeah,
meh
yeah.
or whatever it's mid to them. This is just a pit
It's
stop for them.
I have 15-year-olds right now,
Yeah,
and like it's a different vocabulary for sure.
it is, man.
Mid. That's funny. All right. Well, I want to talk about your business today. So you move from you do some renovations. So the Lexington market, for the audience that doesn't know, Lexington uh, is thrown a circle around the town and said, we're not growing past this. You have to have 40 acres and a mule if you want to build something outside. And what it's done is it's kind of artificially protected the rest of the county, which is nice, but it's also restricted growth. And so building houses is a lot more expensive. But you guys also do a whole lot of remodeling. So let's say here I am, I have a nice house. How do you help me think through how to remodel my house so that I can get the most out of it?
Well, I think a lot of times the first thing we ask is this your forever home, or you're at least for a long time home? Because the money you're going to invest in it, you're not going to see an ROI immediately. You're probably not going to see a good ROI even in 3 to 5 years. Your ROI is going to be your live-in experience, how long you get to enjoy it. And then, in 10, 15 years, appreciation alone, the value of the improvements you made, that's all going to pay off. But so it's having that kind of candid conversation up front, and just making sure that people are aware that this is a big investment, and it's more of a long-term investment, similar to the way people used to buy a 30-year mortgage thinking they'd live there 30 years and pay it off.
Right.
Nowadays, people they go in and they're thinking this is my home for 2 to 3 years, and then I'm going to upgrade. Market fluctuations have kind of, I think, halted that, but I think that that's kind of where you start, and then it's trying to understand what their wants are, and what their needs are, because that's another thing that a lot of people have a hard time. They don't know because they have never lived in what they wanted or what they needed, and
Mm.
sometimes those things don't align either. Wanting and needing, can often go hand in hand. So I had somebody that wanted an island, but they sure didn't need one. It was going to really convolute their kitchen. It was going
Yeah.
to make the flow extremely challenging. It was going to have spaces that were tighter than they should be and restrict movement. So, having a good interior designer, having good architects to work with that are really good at spatial awareness and is extremely, extremely important in the beginning. You know, Working through that planning and that designing. And a lot of people want to rush into it because it's like anything. It's like when you decide you want a car, what do? You start going to shopping for a car, and you want to make that purchase pretty quick. Unfortunately, with remodeling, you've got to slow down and do some really intense planning.
No, I love that though, because I think it speaks to the transactional nature of life that we in America have kind of like settled into, and that doesn't have to be normal. You can put in roots somewhere that you want to live, and then you can live the way you want to live. I think that's very cool. So you do design build, so you both design it and you build it. Um, what is your what is your most challenging rebuild that you've done recently?
Um, I would say we put a basement next to a crawl space was probably one of the most challenging. Because you're, if the physics side of it, if
Yeah,
you kind of dig into your engineering side, you go, okay, well, the basement's here, the footer,
yeah,
the foundation's here. It's like, how do you do that? And um, I thought about it so much that I went and, at times kind of had my thinker moment where I sat in the backyard staring at the back of the house, trying to determine, how can I, protect the integrity of the house while developing this new space. And it was adding like a 2,000 square foot addition on the back of this house. So it was massive. I mean, they were massively increasing the size
yeah.
of the house. And so we ended up putting helical piers in. Helical
Uh-huh,
piers, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They kind of almost have like an auger looking tip,
uh-huh.
and they drill them down into the soil until they hit something solid, and then they bolt them to the foundation. So what we did is we essentially secured it to where if the dirt collapsed from underneath the footer would still support itself by these metal piers. So we put 3 or 4 of those in and then poured all the way up against it, did a thicker pour wall, more rebar in it. This was near water too, so I was real worried about the water table. So we, did some geotech inspections to make sure the water table wasn't going to be an issue, because elevation wise, where the water was versus the bottom of the basement,
Yeah.
appearance wise was really close. So, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge and all the thoughts that had to go into how are we going to do this. And I threw ideas at the engineer. The engineer helped to put the science behind it and the math, because even though I studied engineering in school, I can no longer do the math. It's not like riding a bicycle,
It is
and I
not like
don't have
riding
a
a bicycle,
stamp.
that's true. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it was to me, that was exciting. Like, I get excited about things that are really challenging and difficult, and because
No,
I
that's
think
a
about
super technical build. Like, I'm thinking through it, as you're talking about it, I'm kind of imagining, I'm like, man, a lot of times remodeling is like, we're just gonna knock out a wall, we're gonna throw some shiplap, we're gonna, the old Chip and Diana Gaines. But no,
yeah,
that's like a really complicated remodel. That's very cool.
heck yeah, and I enjoy that because I think that that's probably one of my strengths is I'm a great problem solver. And I equate that to, I read this not too long ago. It said the people who have a, bad attention span or ADHD or whatever, that they typically are good problem solvers. And I like to think that that's me in a bubble right there. Like I
Yeah.
definitely have a short attention span. But I love when a good challenging problem. I think that's when I shine the best. Probably because I'm not in a box when I'm thinking. I'm kind of grabbing ideas from all over the place.
Yeah, and you're not immediately dismissing things that are like, "Oh, that's too complicated." You're saying, "Okay,
Yeah,
how can we do this?"
yeah.
So how does that translate to commercial? Because you do new builds, you do residential models, and then you do commercial buildings. What's some challenges you run into in the commercial world?
Commercials, I would say the challenges are often more time related in commercial. Like people come to me all the time and they're like, we want to be open by this date. And it's because there's money that it's going to cost them and they want
Yeah,
to start recuperating that as quickly as possible. Um, I can't recall a lot of super challenging, commercial jobs that we've had, but we've had some ones though that have required like a lot of build up, so like which is kind of a cool thing if you break it all the way down, but like you'll have to build a retaining wall is x amount of feet high. You got to have a solid compact soil or building pad underneath that surface, which requires again the geotechs to be involved, and there's a certain psi that the soil has to have in that area, and so you get some stuff like that, but the involvement of the design professionals in commercial is so much heavier than residential. There's
mm,
not as much questions left in the air. A lot of times they're bringing it to you and the problem's already been solved. Now you just have to execute it and have the right experts in place. So I think the challenges more fall into time slot challenges, which it's all the time. People are like, "Can you do this in 4 months?" And it's like,
oh goodness.
and we've done it. We've managed to be good at it, but sometimes it requires them to pay a little bit of overtime. Sometimes you have to work through the weekends or even through some of the evenings. But I think we had two of these medical facilities that were 5,000 square foot ground up. I think we did one in 110 days,
Goodness
and
gracious.
had them open and functioning. And then I think the other one was maybe 119 days or something like that. And we had them going simultaneously. So we had two jobs that they were wanting to push an immense pace, and we were able to get both of them done. And they had to pay some overage, for that extra
Yeah.
time that it took to do it that quickly. But nonetheless, there was a little bit of stress. There was a few people going, "We're not going to make it," and we're in the background going, "Yeah, we're going to make it." So that's kind of fun. It's fun for some,
Yeah.
stressful for others.
All right. So you have a multi-state operation. You're doing big projects all over the place. I think one of the most exciting ones we've been talking about lately is in Tennessee. What do you sit around and think about in terms of the future? How do you say, okay, I have multiple teams, I have a good marketing team, I have a good back end technical team. How do you start growing the business?
It's funny you say that because I had this conversation about what's one of the better predictors of success, and I said being able to see the future. And
Mm,
I think that when I'm looking out to the future, I'm going, are we ready for this? And or what's the next phase? Because we grew fast, and then
yeah.
eventually it felt like at some point we hit a ceiling, and I'm like, okay, well now we need to break through the ceiling, and then we broke through that ceiling, and then we grew fast again, and then it was like, all right, then we hit another ceiling. um, and so we're kind of at one of those points now where it's like, are we ready for the next steps? Because I think the next steps start to go more public work, more
Mm,
federal, state
yep.
work,
Yep.
things like that. Because I have such a good network. But I've also spoken about this too. It's like being prepared to take on that challenge, because you may only get one shot at it. And if you go at it when you're not ready, then inevitably that's not going to be there maybe for a second opportunity, or you're going to really struggle to get back to that second opportunity, because when you hit that ceiling, you don't want to hit it and bounce,
Yeah.
and go back down a notch or two. So there's some things that I see in the future, and I just want to make sure that we're ready, because they're going to be much more paperwork intense. There's going to be a much broader pool of bidders, so there's going to be a bigger challenge in order to receive those opportunities. So I think that that's kind of where that next future I see is like it's going after jobs that are going to require bonding. Ugh. It's nobody likes to go buy an insurance policy,
Yeah.
for $250,000 insurance policy or more. So
Oh
we've
yeah.
seen that here recently with some of these 7, 8, 9, $10 million projects. But it's wild to think that, you know, just, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, I was getting excited about breaking six-figure jobs. Now and then I can remember getting so excited about breaking into seven-figure jobs. Then here in the last few years, breaking into eight-figure jobs. So only way to go is up, ready to break into those nine-figure jobs. But I want to make sure we're ready. We've got the right gear, we've got the right team, we've got the right structure in place, and um, so the future is clear, but when we take that leap is not exactly clear yet, because I think there's more structure building we have to do as a team.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for you. I think I understand better because you've talked about getting a team of young folks that have work ethic, which is kind of the magic box anyway, and that are excited to come to work and to work for you and to challenge you, which is again another kind of magic black box. I think I'm starting to catch an idea of how that's possible because you're not done yet. You're still building. You're excited about the next phase. That's
Yeah, and
cool.
and they get me excited too because, they're coming in and they're creating their own opportunities. They're creating their own projects. They're facing their own challenges that they're having to work through. And to me, when I was 20 years old and I was doing this, that was just so exciting. Like it was just so exciting to just build, and the
Mm,
feeling of achievement that comes along with it. Like, and it gets me excited for them because it reminds me of how much I loved this stuff. And at times, I think this is probably true with anything. At times you fall out of love with what you're doing.
yeah,
Your relationship with your business becomes a little bit of a struggle, because we all go through it. We all kind of experience that kind of. It's like, all right, am I ready for a new challenge? Am I just bored of it? Am I exhausted with some of the interactions? Because some people can negatively affect that as well. You get a few bad customers, or you get a few bad business relationships, a few bad experiences, and then you're like, you kind of get a little bit, little of the love, tends to fade. So
yeah, no, definitely.
they help me bring that back. They get me excited again.
Mm, that's like not only is it yeah, not only is it good to have the young people around, but they give you the energy back in those slumps. That's a good reminder. Um, I'm just kind of reflecting on some of the folks in my life. That's cool, man. Well, we're running out of time here on the show. I think this has been a lot of fun talking about building teams, building from scratch, and then the constant remodeling of your life is kind of like a house. So I'm going to give you the floor. You got 2 or 3 minutes. Just talk to the folks. Maybe share some of your favorite wisdom. Anyway, floor is yours.
Well, I'm going to go back to the one that you said. Wisdom is built on a mountain of failure. I've never been afraid of failing. I've never been afraid of my employees and my, subcontractors, everybody's failing. I fear them hiding their failures. I feel them, crumbling under their own failures instead of, grabbing onto them and learning from them. I tend to tell my guys, because I want to humanize myself. 9% of the time I'm killing it. 10% of the time I'm messing something up. And in any sport, any league, any grade, anywhere you put, if you're 90% effective, then you're doing a remarkable job. And
Yeah,
so let them know that that's okay, and that we, embrace that. Some of those lessons can be expensive, so you better learn from them, especially if they're detrimental on our pocket. But it's one of my favorites, because I just think that, when I'm trying to mentor young people, I'm trying to mentor other, people who do what we do, who are new in business. That's one of the things that I really feel like has created my wisdom. It's 25 years of failures in the industry, not 25 years of success. Those are great, but I didn't learn nearly as much about from all my wins. If anything, the failures kept me humble. It kept my head being able to fit through the door. It kept my
mm,
ego in check. And I think that that's, detrimental to success, as well as having a good equalizer when it comes to keeping your ego in place, and making sure that you continue to be humble, and that you're forever a student. And read like crazy, listen to books or read books. It's great to get that other perception and talk to everybody that you can. I always love talking to you at networking events because you challenge me with questions that force me to actually have to stop and think. Whereas I'm able to kind of float through most of life just with basic questions. I can flow right through those. But when somebody actually challenges me, I'm always appreciative of it because it forces me to have to continue to keep this brain sharp and active. So
I love it. Well, it is always a pleasure for me to see being at a networking event and see you walk in the room. I enjoy not only your insight, but like you've just done it. Like you were like, hey, I think this is going to work. Let's go do it. And I love you're full of stories. Listen, we got to get off the show here, but I want you to, if you're listening to the show and you're thinking about Teddy, if you have a forever home that you're not quite satisfied with, if you're like, hey, this is my moment when I really, really want to rethink how I want to live life. I'm done being transactional. I'm putting in roots. Maybe you have grandkids. Maybe you have, maybe you've just reached that spot in your career where you said, you know what, I deserve the house that my wife wants to live in or the house that I want to live in. Or you've reached that level in success and you're like, no, it's time to build the building that my company needs for its next stage. Reach out to Teddy at Anderson Rogers Construction. Is it AndersonRogersConstruction.com?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, reach out to them. Tell them you saw them on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show and you're ready for a partner that understands life like you do and is in it for the long haul. And with that, we are out.